Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are archived. You can pick them up as podcasts at artistfirst.com. And now here they are. We call them the wise ones, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And here we are, the wise ones. And thank you very much, Z-Man, who was one of the wise ones, one of the wise men, New Year's Eve. And if you guys if you missed that show, you missed a classic. Actually, you haven't missed it. You can go listen to it. Anyway, I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
She's Margaret, and welcome to the new year. And what we want to do is exhort you, is encourage you to never quit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm giving up right now. Bye. That's it. I'm done.
Oh, that was short.
Well, it was short, but And the corollary to never quit. I mean, there's actually two things, Margaret, about never quit. People will tell you not to quit when you're at a low point, when you're at a point where you really do want to, and it always feels like something easy to say. The first reaction when somebody says, "Well, you shouldn't quit," is, I've fought the good fight. I've done everything I can, and it hasn't worked, and it's not working, and I want to give up. And everybody feels that way once in a while. We all feel like whatever it is that we're currently embroiled in, and life. If you aren't being currently challenged by life, count yourself lucky, because life is really good at challenging you. And oftentimes those challenges don't have neat, clean kind of beginnings and ends. They don't seem sometimes to have an end. When you're really presented with something, it often appears that it's never going to change. So there's that aspect of this kind of environment of people say, well, never, don't quit. And the other part of it that's always sort of challenging about this idea of never quitting is that it's always, the voices that tell you to quit are always so reasonable, and they're always couched in terms of people who maybe you grew up around, or the XYZ, Uncle so and so always said you shouldn't do this, and if you are, you should, you have to get out, you have to be reasonable, you have to cut your losses, They're always the head voice.
I think you should read the graphic that we put up, because now those are the voices that speak to you.
That's always your job. I'm bad at the reading of the graphic.
Oh, come on.
Well, we do have this. We should have, or we will have, or there's going to be a boss graphic up on the website. There may even be right now. No one really knows. But go right ahead if you can see it. If not, I'll try to make it closer.
Yes. It's impossible, said pride. It's risky, said experience. It's pointless, said reason. Give it a try, says the heart.
Whispers the heart.
Whispers the heart.
And that quote is all over the place. I mean, we found that we kind of looked for quotes in this vein, and it's always attributed to no one. So there's been a couple of people who have sort of semi-claimed it, or they've changed it a little bit and claimed it, but it's unknown. It's always attributed to the unknown.
It is the experience that we all go through when we're looking at something, and it's like, that's enough. You want to throw your hands in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And walk away. But you don't.
Well, and all those things you just said, experience, reason, pride.
Mm-hmm.
When you're failing, or when you're going through a trial and you think everyone else is, and it's your pride that's wounded. How can I look so foolish? How can I look so incompetent?
Yes. And if you think about it, it's those first three statements are always from the viewpoint of I. I think it's impossible. I feel it's too risky. Oh, what's the reason for this? It's pointless.
Pointless. And those words of pride are something from, pride you get from external sources. Infants and toddlers and children, they don't have a lot of pride. Pride is something you learn from your your older self. You're not child self. You're not true self, inner self. Pride is something you say, well, I should be better than this. I'm a CEO. I've got 10,000 degrees. I've got this. I've got that. I'm worth something. And so therefore I can't fail. I'm embarrassing myself. I'm better than this.
It's exactly that. It's a concept. You've basically formed a concept of what your capabilities are, and what you have a bag, a little shelf that has all your experiences on there, and this is the way it happens. And pride comes in when it says, well, this is the only way it happens, because that's the only thing I've experienced. So therefore, this has got to be the only thing that's got to count.
I think pride is the process where you identify yourself by what you've done or what you have.
As part of it, pride is basically looking at it going, well, I know what I can do, which that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with being competent in what you do. But to realize that you don't know everything, because you may know what to do in a certain situation, but you always make room for the fact that there are things that you don't know or don't perceive. And it's okay.
Right, and that would be the antithesis of pride. Well, always being willing to learn. But I think pride is the feeling that you know it all already, or that you should, that you're already this great thing, this great accomplished person, that I have, a station in life that I have to maintain. And pride will say, oh, it's impossible. No one can do that. That's beyond anything, because you don't want to risk failure. Because failure is the proof against pride. How can I fail? I'm supposed to be so great.
I think that when that happens, when you experience failure, it basically says to you that you don't know.
Yes.
And then you take umbrage to the fact that you don't know, which is like, it's okay not to know. That's my point. Make space for the fact that you just don't know everything.
Well, you're past the point of pride when you do that. You say, I don't know everything, therefore I'm not a prideful person. I'm humble. The opposite of pride is humility, and humility doesn't mean that you denigrate yourself. No, humility means what you just said, is that you realize that you are not, you don't know everything, that you always have to make room to learn, for new experiences, for the willingness to fail. And that our last statement, give it a try, whispers the heart, is exactly that. Give it a try doesn't say you're guaranteed success. It doesn't say you're guaranteed failure. It says you have a willingness. But all those other things, the next one, experience. Well, without experience, how can we know anything? Well, true. but experience is a wonderful guide, but it should never become something which says, well, everything's foredestined, because if it happened this way once, it's going to happen this way exactly the same next time.
Well, the assumption that once you experience it, then you must know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You've experienced it once, and in that experience, it went a certain way. But, did you make note of the fact that there was a dozen different ways it could have gone?
Well, you used to run to people all the time at the store, and you would tell them something, and what was their immediate, instantaneous, almost knee-jerk reply?
Mm. I know.
I know.
Yes. That's good. Then don't ask me.
Yes. Oh, I know. And what was, we would sometimes talk a little bit afterward and say, well, they were never really asking the question. What they were really trying to get was an opportunity to tell you how much they knew already, or how much they knew, even more than you. The question was never about knowledge or seeking knowledge, or even just being a willing querent. What's the most important aspect of the student is to come to the master and say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me, fill me, be a vessel. No, the I know is a full mountain. It's a prideful, puffy mountain of everything that I know, and here it is. And you cannot. I resist all attempts to teach me because I know.
Well, what I found was that container of knowledge that they're bringing to you, they want to use that almost like as if it's currency. I have all this knowledge, therefore you should want to be my friend.
Yes.
And I would go, why are you doing that? Because I don't understand. Well, I don't need the knowledge. I didn't ask for it. What are you doing? And it took me a bit to figure out that people would do this. They would come in and they wanted to bring this whole body of knowledge in because they want to be my friend. They want to talk with me. They want to have conversation. And I'm like, but conversation is a heart-to-heart thing, unless we're doing research on something, I don't see what the issue is. And a lot of people would come in almost with a project that they just wanted my input on, as opposed to, well, let's have a real conversation of what's going on. Almost hoping that we'll talk about this subject that I've designated as project, and maybe I can get some glimmers of something else that's close to my heart injected into the conversation.
I think there's that, but I think if I go back to the point that I think is central there is they come in with this, instead of coming in to have a conversation or to ask a question, they're really coming in just to expound, to kind of do this sort of self-aggrandizing, look how much I know, and now you can be so pleased that I designated you as my listener for the moment. It's very much, I don't want to go too far off into this, but it is the antithesis of the soft sort of querent, of asking a question or having a conversation in which you trade things back and forth. It's very much this kind of, here I am, the radiant me. Do you want to hear all the things I'm doing? It's very, very, very puffy, and I think we would get this. You get this sort of sticky feeling, like they're really there just to kind of expound and find an audience for their brilliance. They want to hear. All they want to hear is, oh yes, oh yes. Oh yes, you really. Oh, you're so good.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want to be told that they're wonderful.
Yes.
And I always think that's when the question would always rise in my mind, like, why is this necessary? If you are on your path and this is truly what you believe, you don't need assurance or affirmation.
Affirmation.
You don't need affirmation from anyone else. Why are you doing this then?
And to contrast to in the heart, we're going off a little bit, but this is good. The heart doesn't need that affirmation, because the truth of the path, regardless of reward, regardless of the ability to kind of shine and be feted and acclaimed, means nothing to the true heart. The true heart is following this path, sometimes a path which looks impossible and risky and pointless, because it's the true path of the heart, and it knows that this is where I have to be, and I don't need anyone to affirm. I don't need anyone to have to give me the like attaboy encouragement. When go ahead.
When you are on your path, usually the task that's been presented to you is monumental.
Can be.
That's why those three statements of it's impossible, it's risky, and it's pointless come into play. You are dealing with a pathway that seems monumental. And to put this in perspective, because, we're talking about it, but it just is, at this point, it's all mental constructs. But just what we had to do with our son, okay? When our son was diagnosed with cancer in a very rare form, and all reason basically said there was no percentage where he actually went into full remission.
Right, 0.
Mm-hmm. Pointless. And the options that we had were all risky, because the options could take his life as well as try to give him life.
Every one of them was, and it was the last ditch effort. We were right. We went all the way right to the biggest guns, the riskiest course, because there wasn't anything else. Right.
Right, and every brand new protocol that there was, we were on it. People would bring us articles saying, "Have you seen this?" Oh yeah, we tried that last month. We were part of the team where the experiment was being done. Yes, that was us. Right. And again, pride says it's impossible. This is an impossible task.
Impossible.
But the heart says, let's give it a try.
Right.
This is the perspective that we're talking about. Do you just throw your hands up in the air because it's impossible? I can't tell you how many parents I've seen when they are told, especially an outpatient, when they're told what the diagnosis is for their child, and they're just floored because the I know gets pounded into the ground. Right. Your reasoning, it's like, oh, well, this can't be. It's like, well, it is. Right. This is a fact. It is. This is the diagnosis. This is the results of the biopsy. This is.
Well, and stop right there. All those facts, all those reasons, say they overwhelm the mind, the I. They're telling me
your ego is overwhelmed.
Every reason that they're giving me says it's pointless. We should give up. Everything that they, even what they say we possibly could try. Oh, it's incredibly risky. It's almost impossible. We should give up. So and if that was our experience and Christopher's experience, but these are the challenges that every one of us faces at one point or another in your life, and it can be as simple as some sort of a venture, a new career, a place where you have to step out and do something that everyone around you and all the voices that have been in your heart, in your head and kind of drilled into you. Oh, you can't invest that money that way. It's too risky. No one's ever done it before. It's impossible. Who needs that anyway? You're just wasting your time. It's pointless.
In our experience, that never happens.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No one's ever done it before, so it's impossible. Every true heart, every true advancement, real advancement of the human spirit and soul, has come through those gates,
Those blocks.
those blocks. Those had to go over those hurdles. That and the only road is the heart road, because the heart road doesn't care how high the mountain, how wide the gap, how many risks it has to take, and whether it fails or not. You see, I think people get tied up with the Christopher's journey, and the journey we went on with him was foreordained failure. But every one of our lives, from the moment we take our first breath, is foreordained in one regard as a failure, because we're not going to live forever. No one is. So, but let me finish. The idea that you succeed in life by living is ridiculous. You succeed in life by living for however long you have. There's a big difference between living forever, or living just because you want to go and keep going, and realizing that it's every breath that you take which is precious, and you don't know that you're getting the next one.
When Christopher began his journey, and small children, they live their lives every day. Okay, we woke up today. It's great. Let's go do something, or let's go explore something, or it's not always a doing thing. It's engaging in what life is. So when everything else around you is telling you that, oh, this is impossible, like, yeah, you know what? There's been a lot of people who've been there, and a life is on the line. But what do? Do you curl up into a ball and just basically say, oh, life is mean, and I don't like it, and I'm going to take my marbles and go home? It's like, that's not an option. That's not an option. You have a choice to live or not every moment of every day. It's that simple and that precious. You're here, and whatever limitations happen to be with you in the moment, you are here and breathing and taking things in and conscious, observing.
And to go back to the earlier, that being is also a state of realizing that you don't know if you're going to have your next breath, but you also don't know what's going to happen next. And you don't, I want to say you don't care, but it's not that you don't care. It's that the current precious moment, Margaret, is so important that you don't spend any time wondering if the next moment is coming. You're in this one.
You're not living for the future. You are here.
Right.
You are here and now. The future will unfold.
Right.
On its own volition.
Right. Whether you like it or not.
Correct. You cannot manage it. You cannot give it a syllabus or an outline saying, okay, now, at this moment, you should be doing this life, okay? And at this moment, it should be this, and then this.
Right. And nor can you say, pause, I want to, I'd like to stay right here. No.
Although people do dwell in a past memory, which is sort of a pause. They think it's a pause. That's the interesting part. But your life goes on. Life goes on, no matter how badly you want it to stop.
Right. Or your trial goes on, no matter how badly you want it to stop, or your you know, the idea of giving up doesn't mean that you can also order your trial to end. Well, if I give up, it's over. It's actually not over at all.
I believe the focus that most people have is we're going to attempt something so that we get this particular end.
Right.
It's got to be this way, and it's got to come out this way. We're doing our very best, so it's got to come out this particular way, the way that I want it to. But life doesn't listen to you like that.
Well, right.
So to be in the heart state allows you to receive whatever happens to you. Whatever the outcome is, you understand that it was in your control to start with. But you're here to participate, and you're here to witness and be present for what is going on around you and for people around you.
Right. I mean, and if we back up a little bit, because we are going far afield, I think the part of the issue is that people conceive of the ability to quit, and quitting is in and of itself already a control thing. It's already a mental thing, if you know what I mean.
Right.
The idea that you can say, it's too hard, it's too risky, it's impossible, I'm going to quit, is also almost to say, that I have control. Well, I didn't like that outcome, I'm going to quit. I'm going to give up on that. But giving up on life is, unless you're going to throw yourself off a building, doesn't actually mean anything. The path of the heart realizes that there is no quitting. There is only a willingness to try. And yes, you can get tired. And yes, you can be defeated over and over and over again. In fact, as the saying goes, there are only two kinds of people, those who try and those who don't, because winning doesn't mean anything either.
Right. Right.
There's no such thing as winning forever, nor is there any such thing as losing forever.
Mm-hmm.
There's only the living. There's only the being, and being and trying are almost exactly the same thing, because you don't. Well, the willingness to try, to say yes to the next moment, to
right.
open and receive.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying doesn't say, I'm only trying this if I'll win.
How many people do we know do that?
Exactly. That's kind of
that's the baseline. That's like, I'm only going to do this if I know I'm going to get a return.
Right. And that's where that's the fallacy of the whole thing. If you're only trying it because you want to win, you've missed the point. You should be only trying it because the heart says, this is true, whether you win or lose. And even stopping the whole concept of winning and losing in and of itself is a false choice. It's a false dichotomy. You're not winning or losing. You're just living, which means winning and losing, and then losing and then winning. But it doesn't matter.
For the experience, it's two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Perspective. It's teaching you about perspective and teaching you about relationship, what it means to be on one end or the other.
And we are on one end of the break, and we're going to be on the other end in a minute. So let's go back to the studio and take a little break.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on ArtistFirst World Radio. Have a question or comment, you can always send it to us at dj@artistfirst.com. Now back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Z. And we're so glad. We're so glad you didn't quit on us and you're back. and we will be here no matter how. There were some impossible things we had to get over just to get to the other side of the commercial break, but we persevered.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. And tonight, this evening rather, our topic really is, don't quit. We sort of facetiously put up on the website the, don't give up, never give up, never surrender, which if you don't know what that's from, you should just give up right now. Just turn off your radio and go back and go to the internet and find that quote and realize what it's from. But life is, that should be the motto, never to give up. And what you're not giving up on is you're not giving up on you, okay? And that's, it may sound sort of trite, but it's not. Your first breath and your last breath are important, because one brings you into life and one brings you back home to rest. But every breath, to stick with that analogy, in between is equally precious. And we all forget that. Every one of us forgets that. We get lost in the minutiae. We live in the future. We worry about the past. We spend far too much of our lives kind of not living them and just kind of, unconsciously existing. And a lot of the things that we've talked about here, some of the meditation practices and some of the things that are part of many different disciplines and religions, are to make you more mindful. Mindfulness is a word that's tossed around a lot, but the mindfulness that we're trying to talk about here is to understand that this precious moment, the one that you're in right now, is where you are, what you should be living and doing. And the corollary, the complement to that, is that if you are in a trial, Margaret, if we're in a trial, and we've been in some trials, and every one of us is in a trial at one point or another. If you are in a trial, realize two things. One is that this trial, regardless of how it feels right at the moment, will not last forever. Mm-hmm. But there is no point in assigning anything to the current moment other than, is it true in my heart what I do next? In other words,
no regrets.
No regrets, but also if you're in the midst of a trial, you don't want to tell yourself it's impossible. You just want to tell yourself, this is hard, but it won't last forever. If you're in the midst of a trial, you don't want to say it's risky. You already know that it's risky. You already know life is risky. Life is a risky business which nobody gets out of alive. One of the first things we said on the Soul of Everyman was, nobody gets off the planet alive. Nobody. Life is a risky business with 100% mortality rate. So realize that the risky business of life is yours and yours alone. And if this moment is pointless, all moments are pointless, because there's no more important point to a moment than the one that says you must live it. So the importance of your life isn't whether or not you're going to make $1 million tomorrow or lose $1 million tomorrow, or die tomorrow, or somehow become the king of the world. I don't know. It doesn't. The accomplishments aren't you. The succeeding, the winning, or the losing aren't you. You is the thing that is living. Is the being that is being. And when you feel like, quote unquote, quitting, what you have to do right at that moment is say, what am I quitting on?
What are you quitting on? When you want to quit, that feeling of, you've gone through all your mental constructs. There doesn't seem to be any reason, or there's no reasonable answer. And it's so completely outside the box that you are in the land of the unknown.
Mm.
So fear rises. You're dealing with a pathway that has no preconceived idea of how it should be.
Mm.
So you don't know. And I think it's an automatic feeling of, well, I don't know, I'm afraid. All right. But that's when you engage only in what the mind tells you, only what reason tells you. And again, that you will be put into situations that are beyond reason and beyond understanding, beyond control. And that is a frightening statement for most people. But the truth is, and this is only listen if you really want the truth.
This is your PSA.
You're not in control anyway, regardless of what is happening and how it appears. You don't really have control. Can you embrace that? Because you are more than what you think and what you feel and what experiences you're in. Can you reach out and touch that? Because that is the greater part of you and the part that never dies. You have this. You are this. Will you embrace that? Or do you insist on shrinking down your experience here only to what you think and how you react and how you feel and what's happening to you? You really just want to shrink everything down to that, because there's a part of you that watches all of this and knows the truth of who you are. So aren't you tired of finding dead ends?
So, exactly, of course. And really, that's the truth of it, is that the life that you're in right now, you don't have any control. And the fallacy, or the thing that we reassure, that the mind wants to reassure us about, and let's back up for just a second. We're not trying to say that you shouldn't think about things or that you shouldn't use your mind. We're given these tools for a reason. They're very, very, very important and very effective. But, as Margaret just said, we are all, you and all of us, are far more than that. And the mind, unfortunately, the mind likes and dislikes things. Well, it doesn't like being a tiny little part of you. It would love to convince all the vast rest of you that it is everything. And if any of you are familiar with SpongeBob SquarePants, the mind is plankton. The mind is a very tiny part of you which wants to tell the rest of the world and itself that it is everything. It is very, very afraid when it finds out that it is not everything. And it will do almost anything to convince itself that that wasn't right or true. So the mind is, it can easily get into sort of a psychotic, sort of circular reasoning. Well, if I don't like it, and I don't think it's going to be true, and if I haven't seen this before, and it's impossible, it can't exist. And you see people, we all know people, and we ourselves you get spun up into something, and we always describe it as being spun up because you are being spun. You feel as though you're being spun because your mind is spinning at that moment. It's trying to convince itself that the current, that it knows what's going to happen with absolute surety, that it has a goal, and if it does X, Y, Z, it's going to get A, B, and C, and everyone who's ever done that before has always gotten those things, and this is what we're going to do, and blah, blah, blah. And what you said before, Margaret, when reality comes in and blows that little construct to the winds, the mind just cannot deal with it. It goes right over the top. And that's the moment when you realize that you are a vast being with incredible resources, that you are a being with the heart and the truth, and that the mind is small. But that's also the point where people sometimes completely lose it. They want to give up because they're so, and we are all guilty of this, they're so comfortable. The mind has made you so comfortable in telling you that you can get ABC with XYZ every single time, that when it doesn't work, fear. And fear is, as has been said many times, the mind killer, but it's also it's an incredible challenge to suddenly realize that you are afraid. And what you need, you need courage. And courage, lovely word, kur, comes from the heart. Courage is a necessary requirement for being, because one of the things that courage will help you with is realizing that you really don't know what's going to happen next, and you never have. Children are born, infants are born with incredible courage because they enter into a world in the physical incarnation which they have no control over, none whatsoever. They can't even feed themselves. They can't walk, can't talk, they can't move. They can barely do anything except be. And yet the courage of the heart, be is enough. Be. I exist. I am. I am a being.
I am here.
Yes.
And the fullness of that is made apparent when an infant opens its eyes. I am here. And then they look around and it's like, oh, you are here. It's a marvelous revelation.
Yes.
But I'd like to go back because there's an image that popped into my head of what the mind actually does, or what we do down here. And I think we've all had this experience where you're standing in front of a mirror, and then you have another mirror behind you, and you have that back and forth, it looks like forever. Looking down, it looks like you're looking down into a forever, infinite moment, looking one way or the other. That's what the mind does. It looks for reflections of itself. And when it finds this reflection, especially a clear reflection, it feels that it has touched forever because it's seeing iterations of this image over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But if you've been in that experience, you also understand that it appears as if it's forever, but there is a limit. Only so far can you go. Understanding that that is how the mind functions. It is functioning in a two-dimensional space where light is playing back and forth. And the courage comes by first removing one mirror and then the other. Then you are ready to be in relationship with another living, breathing being. You can't do it when you're standing there admiring forever in your image.
Right. Very, very true. I mean, this is another whole other topic, but the mind falls in love with its reflection.
Yes.
And we all know the Greek myth, or if we don't, we can talk about it for a second. But Narcissus fell in love with his reflection in the water. The mind loves seeing the mind in everything, in all the vastness of the universe. The mind sees the mind. In all the incredible infinite possibilities of the next second, the mind sees the mind. So what this will happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen. It makes predictions. It's a wonderful, wonderful, incredible thing, but it is a limited physical thing. The mind can imagine infinity, but it can't really grasp it. The mind can live in the past for its whole existence, and live in the future for its whole existence, because these are imaginary, chimerical, fantastical worlds that don't exist. The mind is very much the weatherman of existence. It makes predictions which are never true.
True.
You know, but it
True.
wants to tell you that it really, really knows this time. You know?
I've done the research.
I've done the research.
And according to our charts and all the history that we've had for the past 100 years,
Right.
this is the way Earth is going to do things.
Right. Or you know, it's going to rain right now on Tuesday afternoon at 3 p.m. And yes, predicting what will happen next is incredibly important, because that way you don't run into deer or trees. But it is to spin one's whole existence into the mind is to try to stuff the infinite into an egg carton.
It's also understanding that if you concentrate your life on being right all the time, you literally are looking in that mirror.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's all you're looking for, is an outline of what you think is you.
Right. And to go back to our theme, is when the mind fails, it recoils. It says, well, what did I do wrong? And what kind of, I must not have considered something. And oh, well, that was probably impossible anyway. And oh, I shouldn't do that. It's too risky. And oh, well, that's pointless anyway. We'll just give up and go on and do something else.
And I'm going to reiterate this. When we were told the diagnosis for our son, and was given all the odds and what it is, it's just the reality of what this disease is, I remember turning inward and talking to my mind that I had always figured out a way to get through something, and gave the mind all of that and said, so what now? And it was just dead silence. There was nothing that it could offer. And at that point, my heart said, well, okay. We're in a realm of the unknown and not guided by the mind. We have no markers by which to guide ourselves. I'm going to have to go internal and allow my heart to guide me on where I must go. And the one thing that we understood is, when you followed through on what your heart said, you never regretted it, no matter what the outcome.
Exactly. And I'll say it right now. You were there far, far, far. You and Christopher were there far ahead of me, as I spent my time telling my mind that we could do something, we could beat this thing, we could figure it out for year, maybe a year and a half. And it took me a long time. I'm a stubborn guy. It took me a long time to come to the end of that. And that's who I am. I am a mental person. I'm mental, I tell you. But it's through the experience of being and understanding, and through the experience of knowing you, I've come a little closer to being in the moment. And here's something I'll say from the perspective of somebody who is very mental. It's a mental case. Being is incalculably more satisfying than knowing or thinking or figuring. I'm still gonna know and think and figure, but I now understand how to be without any of those things, and I consider that I consider it a wonderful thing to have to come to know. And I'm the first to admit It's not where I am all the time. But getting to that point is incredibly wholesome. It's satisfying on a level which is hard to define.
Mm-hmm. Because when you enter into the being state, it's all of you that's there. There's nothing left behind.
Even the mind.
Yeah, absolutely you bring the mind. Even the mind may go kicking and screaming, mind you, because it wants to be in charge.
Right. But the mind is not excluded from being.
Mm-hmm.
The mind, on the other hand, would love to exclude everything else but itself, but that betrays its basic insecurity. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It is what it is. The mind has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it fits in a box. It's a lovely box, quite nice in fact, but it is a box. And when the mind wants to start organizing things, it makes little boxes inside its box, and pretty soon it's got a bazillion little boxes inside of a bazillion little boxes, all very neatly organized, but still all inside one box. And the rest of you is outside the box and holds everything else.
And smiles.
And smiles. And is quite happy to let the mind feel like it's in charge.
Or explore.
Or explore. And
the rest of who you are allows your mind to explore. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not a thing.
Nothing wrong with it. You were meant to play.
And you're also meant to never give up. Never surrender. And don't quit. You know what, we'll say it this way. Give it a try.
Yes. Give it a try. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael, and thank you very much for listening to The Soul of the Everyman.